What's going on, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. Hope that everybody's having a wonderful Thursday. So, Bravo has dropped a new show for the summertime, Next Gen NYC. They're taking the children of the Bravo celebrities and other celebrities and creating this show. So, I think it's a really cute show where they're all kind of coming into their own, in their 20s in New York City. So let's go ahead and get into the episode. I love it. They introduce us with Ariana, who is the daughter of Kim Zolciak and Corey Bierman, right? So because he adopted her. But I really like her on this show. I think that she has a really good head on her shoulders. She meets this older lady while she's walking her dogs in Little Italy. And, the lady's like, she says, her name is Marlene. And she tells him, if she takes the dogs into the shop, they'll give the dogs a little turkey leg. And so she's like, I'm Marlene. And, Ariana's like, oh, I'm Ariana. She's like, oh, Ariana, like in that, Italian accent. I was like, it's so cute. And she's like, yes. She's like, say, Italiana. It's like, yes. So I just thought that was adorable. But anyway, so Ariana is, walking her two dogs. They're trying to find a place to live. Ariana's trying to be reasonable with her budget. And after, we find out a little bit later in the episode the reason why. Mostly is because of her mom, unfortunately, and her bad spending habits. But we'll get there. So next we're introduced to, Brooks. He is the son of Meredith from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And he has a sister named Chloe. And Brooks is somebody who is, he's doing his modeling thing, but he's a bit timid. So he allows people to speak up for him. His mom is known in the fashion world, and they're talking, and, he's honest about the relationship, that it's kind of rocky and it's difficult. And his mom's like, I don't know why you would say that. He's like, you fired me last week. And she's like, oh, oops. Ha 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 ha. So they're taking pictures and he's trying to get his modeling portfolio off the ground. Next, we meet a successful model, Ava, who is the daughter of Dame Dash. And her mom is Rachel Roy, who's a fashion designer. But Dame Dash is a co-founder of Rockefeller Records with Jay-Z. Unfortunately, right, for Dame, he's having some financial difficulty. I'm actually going to make a separate video about Dame Dash because, he's somebody who started out with Jay-Z, but Jay-Z went to billionaire status and Dame went for broke. And I remember Dame was on the Breakfast Club years ago talking about how he would never want to have a 9 to 5 because not that it was beneath him, but he was like, I don't want to call another man boss. And that's almost like calling somebody your daddy. And he was just really arrogant. And so now he's like millions in the hole, unfortunately. So next we meet Charlie. Oh, Lord. Charlie is, in my opinion, just like the quintessential rich kid, arrogant, just a jerk overall. His dad is a venture capitalist, so he's, wealthy. I think he grew up on like the Upper East Side. And if you guys remember that movie with Cruel Intentions, he reminds me of Ryan Felipe's character in Cruel Intentions. He's just, rich and spoiled. And unfortunately, after seeing like his father, his father was like staring at the screen the whole time that they were on their segment. And he doesn't really pour into him, emotionally. He said that his father was a good father, but not a good dad. Like he didn't show up for them. He didn't, really encourage them and nurture them. And you can tell because Charlie is cold as ice. All right, so they get together and they're talking about, it's going to be a hot boy, hot girl summer. We meet Chloe, who is Brooke's sister. She's 22, and she's, just out there having a good time visiting her brother. Of course, Charlie goes in for the kill. he's like, licking his lips, and he's basically just trying to, hook up with her essentially, throughout the entire episode. Speaking of, on the flip side of that, though, we meet Hudson, who is Ariana's boyfriend, and they're out to dinner. And Hudson is like, she lets us know that his family is blessed. His father began the Zaxby's chicken empire. So his family, they're sitting pretty. They're multimillionaires. So Ariana is, saying how this is her best friend in the entire world. And she wants to move in with him. However, she wants to be able to, you know, pay her fair share, and she wants to have, to be budget conscious while she's in New York, because New York is one of, if not the most expensive city in the entire world. So this, when she's talking about, and I love Ariana's, how direct she is. She's talking about her career throughout just television, and she's been on TV since she was 5 years old, but she grew up to be essentially, an Instagram influencer. And a few years ago, I know specifically, like, Instagram influencers, they would pay, like she said, she made an astronomical amount of money. She doesn't even know, or at least wants to share with us how much it was. But she says that her mom stole all of her money. And she says that her mom would be, calling her, still asking her for money. She says she doesn't even know the amount. She just found out that it was all gone 2 years ago. And I'm sorry, my dog has the hiccups, you guys. Okay, so Kim would be calling her and asking for more money, talking about how she was drinking $200 bottles of wine. Kim is just trifling. I mean, she was trifling way back when we first met her with her wig, and she was the side piece to Big Papa, and she was like proud about that, and accepting all these lavish gifts from him, and just always having a red cup in her hand, driving, and with the cigarette and stuff. She's just always been, in my opinion, just trifling. But I didn't know that she was stealing money from her children. That's a new low. But Ariana, she has a very sweet heart and disposition. She's like, I never want money to break up the relationship between me and my mother. And her boyfriend's trying to look out for her, because he's like, he can see that Kim is taking advantage of Ariana, but until she sees it for herself, she's just gonna continue to be exploited, unfortunately. So next we meet Georgia. So Georgia grew up on the Upper West Side, and she's close friends with, Charlie. Brooke says that, when you think of Gossip Girl, you think of somebody like Georgia. But all I can think about is her running with Riley sticks out to me. And I'll get there in a second. But Georgia, she kind of matches the personality of Charlie, in my opinion. Someone who is seemingly very like entitled, grew up rich in New York, an aristocrat and an elitist. So that's Georgia, in my opinion, in a nutshell. So they all go out, to a bar, a club. They're drinking shots, and Charlie's sitting down. He's trying to, get with Chloe, and he's just saying that, going on a date with his friend's sister, what could go wrong? Like, I feel like he almost embraces this attitude of being a jerk, I mean, he's just like, he just does not care. You could just see like the light is gone from Charlie's eyes. I don't know. There's something about him that I almost feel bad for him, because you can tell that he wants that closeness and that connection, but it's almost like his father has been so cold to him and rejected him for so long, over so many years, that that bravado that he puts out to the world, he uses it as a mask for his own pain. It's pretty sad. So Dame, they're in the car, and he's in the car with his fiance and with Ava, and their little brother, and they're playing I Spy, and Ava says, I spy something black, and Dame is like, well, that's not one of Ava's boyfriends, and it's like, Dame, that's definitely your daughter because you don't date black people either, clearly, because your fiance in the back seat is not black. But Dame was saying how proud he is of Ava. She's like the quintessential New York it girl model. She's modeled for a lot of popular brands like Dolce and Gabbana, and she just has a really wide range portfolio. So her modeling career is going really well. So they interviewed Charlie. He says that he's focused on having fun with girls and spending money. He gets an allowance from his dad of $10,000 a month. He goes and gets his hair cut, and he's like, on camera, we'll pretend like I'm paying it, but just really bill it to my dad. His barber's like, okay, like he's used to it. You know what I mean? Just everything like Fifth Avenue, 42nd and Second. New York. If you know, you know. Um, but they go to Georgia's confessional where she's a brand events creative strategist. So she says that she's done all kind of creative events, which she's really proud of. She says she grew up middle class, but she's like in the in the mirror combing her hair with a fork, like in the Little Mermaid. Georgia she's different. She's eclectic. um, but yeah, so Ava and Charlie walk up and they give her a hug, and Charlie says that Ava's like his sister, where she would sleep on his couch 6 or 7 times, and she's just doing her thing, being young. Yeah, these kids are a trip, man. They're not even kids; they're young adults. But Charlie, and I know I can tell Georgia is really digging Charlie, at least his bank account, right? But she's always really flirtatious with him. She's like, oh, she overly laughs at everything that he says. She says that Charlie's dated, quite a repertoire of women, including Lindsay Lohan, name dropping, right? Because it's New York. But I can tell she wants Charlie, and Charlie is not here for it. He's not trying to settle down with anybody serious, but once he does, it's definitely not going to be Georgia. He looks at her like a sister. Um, so then next up, and I think this is the final cast member, Amira. She's a content creator model. She's trans, and she is, big on IG in the influencer space. Ava says that she's not as big in content creation, so she has to focus on that aspect because Ava's more traditional, right? Her parents come from that world of urban hip hop, and her mom's a fashion designer, so she's very much taken a traditional route. Whereas Amira, she's has brand deals, sponsorships, and she does everything on IG. So she has a boyfriend, and she is talking about how she can't get any more nose jobs or her nose will like collapse. Like, oh my god. But she calls Brooks and she asks Brooks, what does he think of her nose? He says, oh, it's stunning. They both went to NYU together, so they're close in that aspect. But, he's like, Brooks says that you should never cross Amira and her friends. Like I said, Brooks is somebody who, in my opinion, he's pretty timid. So people, they go up for Brooks, though they try to protect him. Um, but you can tell that Brooks and Amir are really close friends on and off campus. Amir compares Brooks to David Rose from, S Creek. I can't say the name, but yeah, the Canadian show. And I think it's hilarious. Brooks is like, oh my gosh, no. They compared Charlie to Scott Disick and Barry Manilow. If they were together and had a baby. Oh, the shade. Charlie's not a bad looking guy, but his attitude is what makes him really unattractive. Um, but he has like a chest tat. He's saying that, if he's in a relationship, he misses being single. If he's single, he misses being in a relationship. I feel like he really doesn't know what he wants. He really wants the love and approval of his parents, but I don't think they have the capacity to give it to him, unfortunately. The money's there, yes, but the love and the support is not. So he goes out on a date with Chloe, and I mean, they're just talking, and you can tell that Chloe is a bit turned off by Charlie. Like I said, he's attractive on the surface, but um, he's not a very kind-hearted individual, unfortunately. He shows her where, he was like skateboarding, and somebody asked him because of his bruises and his scrapes were so bad if he got bitten by a shark. And he's like, "Oh, that's so cool." And she's like, and then he says he talked to a girl who said that if he got bit by a shark, he should be able to fend off the shark. See, this is why we need to open the schools. That young lady, whoever he was talking to, needs to be in summer school ASAP, like just 24/7. Because that's a mess. Like, what do you mean he should have fended off the shark? Oh my goodness. Please don't. They're trying to already dismantle the Department of Education. This is a mess. Anyway, so Chloe, she's just listening, and she's taking it all in. He's asking her if this is her, very first date. And she's like, no. But I get it because she's, her and Brooks are from Utah. So they have a very different culture than New York, right? But she's asking him about, dating and his summer vibe and seeing other people. And he gives her a good answer, but she can see him, I think, for who he truly is, because then he texts Brooks later and says you should come out and for drinks with me and Chloe and everybody else in the group, unless your sister and I are already back in my place. And this is after their first date. And so Brooks, tells Riley's like, what? Like, Brooks is heated, as he should be, as her brother. You know what I mean? Charlie knows the right ones to play with, because you can't play around with, everybody and their brothers like that. Because somebody might, cause you to lose a couple of teeth talking about their sister like that. He's disrespectful. I feel like he really just wants to get people's attention because his father pays him dust. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell people who did not grow up with enough attention as children during their formative years, because I promise you it comes out in their adult years, and they're just trying to be so provocative, and it's just annoying. So Hudson and Ariana are apartment shopping, and they find it really difficult, which I can only imagine, especially if they're trying to do so in Manhattan. Um, Ariana, well, we haven't even seen Gia yet. Gia Judice, who's the daughter of Teresa, but she lives in New Jersey with her mom. Smart, right? Saving that money. Riley lives in Brooklyn, and Candy pays for her apartment. But Brooklyn is, a lot more reasonable than Manhattan. I can only imagine how expensive Manhattan is, especially if, the closer you get to Times Square. It's like, or even like Central Park, like West, that area, the Upper East Side and Upper West Side and stuff. It's like you're basically paying for status at that point, and you can't eat that. You know what I mean? Like you're paying for the name at that point. Um, New York is one of those places where I love to visit. I would never want to live there though. So Brooks shows production the text that Charlie um, wrote him in regards to his sister. So it says, "What are you doing tonight?" He says, "Let's go out with Chloe after the date. There are a few fun parties I'm trying to touch." Then he says, "Of course," assuming, of course, um, her and I aren't back in my place already. And then he writes back, "Ew." Like, that is so disrespectful to talk about somebody's sister like that, especially after the first date. Like, I feel like Charlie is just one of those people who is just he's just a provocateur just to be provocative, trying to get a rise out of people. And I feel like he only does that with Brooks. So Brooks is telling Chloe, she said, in what hemisphere would I go out with him on a first date? Or go back to his house with him on a first date. Charlie is a mess and a half. But anyway, Riley meets Brooks, and you know, he shows her the text. She's like, "What? What's going on with Charlie?" Charlie and his friends are on the basketball court smoking, Mary Jane and playing ball. Brooks is, talking with Riley about Ariana Bierman, and Riley says, she hasn't seen her since she was like 10, but they're all going to meet up later. It cuts to when they're little, and Ariana's asking her about having a boyfriend. And Riley's like, if I had a boyfriend, my mom would whip me so hard. And Ariana's like, oh, you know what I mean? You can tell they were just raised so differently. But, 10 years later or however many years later, Ariana has the boyfriend and Riley doesn't yet. So it's like, and it's so crazy because I know Candy, of course, she comes from Mama Joy's, but old school parents, and I wouldn't even say Candy's an old school parent, but it's just funny how old school parents will just be so against, their young girls, even dating in high school, right? Or having boyfriends. And then when they're older, they're like, well, why don't you have a boyfriend? It's like, oh, okay, Sarah. So anyway, so Brooks is talking with Riley, while they're shopping. And, Riley, she can't believe it. But she knows how Charlie is. She knows his personality. Charlie thinks that him and Riley have similar personalities. They don't. Riley is a lot more observant and just like laid back and cool than Charlie is. She says she met him a year ago. He's messy, but he likes to stir up situations and then laugh it off, is what she says. I feel like he does. He tries to get a rise out of people. He's immature and just juvenile in that aspect. Like Riley says, he thinks he's being funny, but there's nothing funny about calling his sister easy. And Brooke says, him sending disrespectful texts about his sister is crossing the line, and there's nothing cute or funny about that. I feel like, Charlie's probably going to meet the right one on the wrong day. He's going to get his feelings hurt, as he should. So Ariana and Hudson, they're starting a clothing line together. They go look at, different clothes. But first they're looking at, different apartments. And the one that they look at is just really small. They have a $6,000 budget. And the realtor is saying that for the space that they would need to double that budget. I feel like Ariana and Hudson are probably going to have to move and look outside of Manhattan because Ariana's from Atlanta, and then I don't think that Hudson probably even has a budget in terms of, how much money his family has. But Ariana is, she's very fiscally responsible, which is good for her. And so she wants to make sure that she can contribute 50%. So the apartments that they're looking at in Manhattan, they're asking for $5,800 a month for the one that they're looking at right now. It is tiny. Yeah, just him walking in, Hudson, he was hitting the brim of his hat on the door frame. It's crazy. Like New York is I know it's the Big Apple, but the prices are just out of this world. So they're probably going to have to move out of Manhattan if they really are serious about getting an apartment together. But so they go to Amira's show. She has a boyfriend, Kevin. So it's kind of like a goth, all like red fashion show where she's walking in it. She's walking on the runway, and everyone's there. Um, you know, it's really nice. They're all supporting her. You know, but Brooks is saying that he feels like he's going to faint because he doesn't want to confront Charlie, but it's like eating him up inside how disrespectful he was to his sister. And listen, that's part of growing up, right? Especially if you're a man. You have to, I feel like Charlie probably should have, pulled him to the side. But at this point, or not Charlie, I'm sorry, Brooke should have pulled Charlie to the side and told him, you do that again, we're done. And be serious about it. You know what I mean? Don't laugh, don't, chuckle, don't let him think that it was a joke or try to play it off like it's a joke or deflect. Because disrespecting somebody's sister like that is not cool. And I feel like Charlie probably, like, just seeing his parents, didn't receive the guidance that he needed, didn't receive the boundaries and the restrictions that he would have needed. Because doing stuff like that is unacceptable. Especially, I think Charlie's the oldest one out of all of them, I think he's 30. So it's like, no, at some point you got to grow up and start treating people with respect, because you're not going to get anywhere in life talking to people crazy like that. And you just met this girl. Y'all had one date and already you're talking about going back to your place. Like, be for real. Be for real. So Brooks is going to have to man up and confront him. So they go out to dinner to celebrate Amir. They go get drinks to celebrate Amir's runway show. And Dylan's there, outside smoking. He's 25. But they're all sitting talking about fashion. Georgia stands up and she's like, do I look like a boy? And they're like, no. She's just thin and has like a boxy outfit, but she's fine. So they're all introducing each other, to each other. Georgia leans over. She says, hi, I'm Georgia. And she shakes Riley's hand. I'm sure Riley is probably looking at that, that footage now, like, oh, because Georgia's a mess. Anyway, but I'll get there. She talks about how she, threw a party for Anna Delvey. Y'all remember she was like the big trickster, and she got away with she was basically a con artist, conning people out of their money. Then Cat's Delis, where when Harry Met Sally was filmed, and so she's throwing parties there. She's like an event planner. But she keeps asking these 20-year-olds, like these Gen Zers, if they've ever seen When Harry Met Sally. I think that movie's older than me. I only saw bits and pieces of it. I've never even seen the entire movie. But she's questioning, whether or not Riley and Gia are from New York, because she thinks that she's like quintessential New York. I will say this. Every single person I've met from New York, no matter if they are what demographic they're from, man, woman, white, black, whoever, right, rich, poor, they're going to tell you that they are from New York. New Yorkers will let you know, if you can't already tell by their accent, because I love a good East Coast New York accent, y'all. But if you cannot tell if somebody is from New York within the first 5 minutes, if they're rocking with you, they will let you know that they are from New York and in the borough. Okay, can you guys tell I used to be engaged with somebody from New York? They let you know the borough everywhere. Okay, New Yorkers don't play about their city, so maybe that's why it's so expensive. I don't know, but anyway, so they're all sitting down, talking, and Gia's saying that Brooks is basically too nice, and I feel like he is. He needs to confront Charlie and shut it down so he knows that he's not the one to play with, or his sister for that matter. Because when he's telling Gia about the joke, quote unquote, the joke that he made about his sister, she's like, I don't know how you don't freak out. Gia, between Teresa Giudice and her father, Joe Giudice, she has no problem speaking her mind. So Gia speaks up for him. She's saying that it's not cool. And so, Charlie is saying that, oh, is this your voice box? Is this your mouthpiece? And Gia's like, no, I'm not being a mouthpiece, but I'm just saying what needs to be said. I'm just a nice friend. So she's like, you don't need to be talking about his sister like that. and it's not respectful. And everybody's kind of uncomfortable, but they agree it is disrespectful. So Riley is, she's like, she's not really defending anybody anymore because it's gotten her into trouble in the past, which is smart, right? The 92 percenters, we're focusing on self-care and rejuvenation over here. But so Charlie offers to show the chat, and he tries again to deflect because he doesn't like confrontation, but he knows he's wrong. So Brooks is challenging him on it, like, okay, go ahead and whip it out. So he reads it, and when he reads it, people realize that, they tell him it's not cool what he said. Charlie's embarrassed, as he should be. As he should be. Because what you're not about to do is ruin this girl's reputation and talk about this woman that you've only gone on one day with like she's just a skeezer, that you can just, use daddy's credit card to pick up off the street. Like, no, sir, we're not doing that. And see, this is his introduction to essentially the world, right? It's not a good look. Charlie is not a good look. So after they read the chat, Ava's like, what do you have to say for yourself? And he's like, okay, well, I will begrudge you. It was a tasteless joke. And they're like, no. Brooks says, his confessional, some accountability needs to be had, and he's right. And Charlie is in his confessional saying, well, I don't think I did anything wrong. I would want to sleep with Chloe, but I can understand. And Charlie is just full of it. He knows he was wrong. So he's gives a half-hearted apology, to Brooks. He doesn't really, in my opinion, it wasn't sincere. And he goes out and he smokes with Dylan. So the ladies go to the bathroom, as girls do, all together. And while they're in there, unfortunately, we learn some TMI about Georgia. So Riley asks her, are you going to wash your hands? And Georgia's like, no. She's like, I was that kid eating candy off of the sidewalk in New York. Y'all, when she said that, my stomach turned. I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, no, I was raised not to wash my hands. I'm telling you what, if it was any other parents, CPS would have been at the door the next day. Okay, somebody called. Listen, you better be glad you was raised on the Upper West Side, because now she's trying to tell the girls on the couch in the club that your body has to adjust to germs. She said it's scientifically proven that germs are good. Has she not experienced the same pandemic that we all did 5 years ago? COVID, okay, coronavirus, like, no. And supposedly it's a new strand. This they're calling like the razor blade throat strand or whatever. Girl, bye. Because Charlie says he could care less whether or not she washes her hands, but Charlie doesn't really care about anything. Like, these confessionals are ridiculous. So she tries to go out to everybody. She tries to hug Riley, and Riley's like, no, girl, no, sorry, I don't want you to touch me because you didn't wash your hands. I don't blame her. Like, how are you going to go to the bathroom in New York in a club and not wash your hands? I'm grossed out for her. At least Riley told you, to your face and not behind your back. She's like, now she's embarrassed. She's like, what's not a religion? She's like, it's my body, my choice. And again, right? Excuses, deflections. Girl, it would have took a couple minutes, 2 minutes with soap and water to get those germs off your hands. And that would have been that. So she's on the elevator with Charlie. Now she's trying to deflect her anger and her embarrassment to Riley, but again, I stand with Riley. Justice for Riley. Riley didn't do anything wrong. She was like, I would, give you a hug goodbye or shake your hand goodbye, but you don't believe in washing them. And you just went to the bathroom. That is disgusting. So anyway, you guys, let me know your thoughts. I like this show. I like this episode. I can't wait to see the shenanigans that they get into. But let me know your thoughts. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care, Aces. Bye.